Hi, I'm Stephen Tallamy, and in this video I'm going to share my 5 favourite things about the new Kithara library from Audio Imperia. Now, as a quick disclaimer, I've gotten to know the Audio Imperia team quite well over the last few months, so this won't be the most unbiased review, but hopefully it will give you a good idea of what the library is all about. And so with that disclaimer, let's jump into my 5 favourite things about Kithara. So number 1 is the presets. There's a load of sound design capabilities inside of Kithara, but really the presets get you a long way. Let's take a look at some of them here. We've got this really nice organization of different things. So from motion, pads, plucked. Let's try some of these texture ones. There's some really useful things here also if you're scoring, so lots of these transition ones you can imagine using between scenes. Let's try out this one. So that's going to be highly useful for TV, film kind of usage. Let's try some of these plucked options. So number 2 is the layers. So everything we've been playing so far in these presets are usually made out of 4 different layers. The attack layer, 2 sustain layers and 1 release layer, and you can choose to turn each of these on and off. So if you take this patch here, you can see we've got an attack and 2 sustain layers and currently no release layer. So let's have a listen to that. So we can actually decompose that. So let's take the 2 sustain layers off and listen just to the attack. And now the sustain. And the other sustain. So this can be really useful if you want to use this, but maybe don't need all the layers at once. Maybe you're trying to sit behind some dialogue or you're trying to move out of the way a little bit. You can turn off different layers and still have the same vibe. Let's try put those back on again and have a listen with the release on the end as well. So this is a release trigger. So you can see as I'm releasing the keys, it's playing this nice octave spread. And there's a lot more control over those layers as well. So if we go into the layers tab, you can see you can play around with the pan, the tuning, stereo spread, how much each of the layers are getting sent into the reverb, but you can even adjust the actual sounds. So here in the attack one, we can actually pick a different source. So maybe we can go and pick a ukulele and a muted sound. Maybe we want to have more of a sustained sound. Or switch over to a mandola. And we can do that with all of the parts, so we can have a look at the sustain layers. Let's have a look here. Maybe we'll go for a nylon guitar with a tremolo. And so with the power of all those presets, you can get going and tailor your sound very quickly. Of course, you can start from scratch and build all of these layers out yourself to make your own unique sound, but there's a load of control there in those layers. Number 3 is Fragments, and this adds sort of granular extra notes after you've played whatever you're playing, and you've got a lot of control here. So here's a patch that's using the Fragments layer. Let's have a quick listen to what it sounds like in total and then see what's going on. So let's turn off these sustain layers, the release layer. Let's turn off the diffuse. So really all we're listening to now is the attack layer and the fragments. And I'm going to crank that up a bit so that we can really hear the fragments. So let's take a look at the Fragments tab. So you can see here we've got a preset left behind. Let's try granular flutters just so we can see the differences between these different things. And maybe let's try warning signs. So what's going on here is you can see we've got another source here, which is in this case a mountain dulcimer, but we can pick other sources as well. So if we want to go in and maybe use a ricochet flam from a balaka, I think that's how it's said, we can pick that source and we get a slightly different effect. And then we've got these controls down here that actually manipulate how those voices work. So we can crank up the reverse here. and mess around with the density, so how many of them are going to actually happen. And there's lots of other controls here, so you can go in and change like the effects that are going on. So let's try this vintage bright effects, maybe in a larger space. And there's even more control under this edit tab, so you can change how the different voices and the different variations are going to go through different effects. So dynamics, EQ, filtering, distortion, and space. And so those all add up to really interesting layers that you can add to your patch. So number 4 is the amount of modulation control you get within the instrument. So you can see here I have got the Audio Imperia fade, and so this is controlling dynamics, but more importantly mod. And so as you can see, as the mod wheel goes up and down, as well as the nice graphics, you can see that there are some things that are changing here within the sustain layer. The echoes layer as well. So not only are we sort of changing the overall feel of it, we're changing some and modulating various aspects of the instrument. Let's listen to it in context. But we've got a lot of control over that as well. So if I go into the Layers tab and hit this pencil button, you'll see that little arrows appear. And this will allow me to do different things with the modulation. So what we can do here is maybe we can drag up the amount that modulation affects the stereo width on this particular patch, maybe change the tuning a lot so we can really hear it. So let's just play with the mod wheel and see how that sounds. We can also modify these controls at the bottom, the sort of the global controls. So if we want to impact shatter, let's turn on shatter. We can actually have that go with the modulation wheel, so that can go up and down as well. Let's add some degrade as well. Maybe not the whole lot. Let's go, say, up to 50%. This gives you a lot of control over the patch so that it can evolve over time as you're writing, because you can just use one controller and modify many parameters at once to get you that sound that you really want. Number 5 is actually a bit of a strange one, but it's a Kontakt library. And why do I see that as being one of my favorite things? Well, I've just recently moved on to a new Mac, and I've had to port all of my libraries over from my old Intel Mac into an ARM-based one, and Kontakt has been the easiest thing for me to get set up again. I just install native access and then relink all my existing samples, which are on external drives, and I'm off to the races again. And I know it works. It's going to work in Logic. It works in all the things. So with other libraries, I've had to reactivate them, install loads of different downloaders. I've had to go in and repair a load of them as well to relink them, edit like properties files just to make things work. I think in one case I actually had to download some beta versions for ARM support just to get the libraries that I've been using all this time working on my new machine. Whereas anything that is in Kontakt, it's there, it's available, and all of it works out of the box. And I think this is a really valuable thing. If you're going to depend on these libraries, you know that this is a stable sample player. And this is really important to me because if I'm going to put these instruments into my template, I need them to work all the time, regardless of whether whether I upgrade logic or if I upgrade my OS, or in this case switch computers. I just want them to work out of the box, and Kontakt has always done that, so I know I can depend on these libraries that I have in the Kontakt player. So Kithara works in the new Kontakt 8, so you can get the Kontakt 8 player or you can get the full version of Kontakt 8. Either one will work, and what I like about this is, again, things just work. I'm not super excited about the more recent things inside of Kontakt 8. Well, I do think that the UIs are starting to look a little bit nicer. The things that developers are able to build, this lovely effect here is really nice here. So it's really nice that you can build slightly more rich user interfaces within the new Kontakt, but there are other features I've not really used, very much different from maybe Kontakt 6. But I do know this works. It works on my machine, and I know that I'm going to be able to use it moving forward. So as you can see, Kithara is a really unique library, and I'm excited to add it to my sonic palette. What do you think about this new library from Audio Imperia? Let me know in the comments below. You can pick up Kithara as a standalone instrument directly from Native Instruments, or as part of the Complete 15 Collector's Edition. If you've enjoyed this video, then please do give it a thumbs up, share and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.